Hey guys.
Hey,
Hello.
Okay, volume good, everything good?
I think so.
sounds pretty
I
good.
think so.
Okay, good. Welcome. Hello everybody who is joining us today. Hello, hi Eva, Crystal, Raymond, Carl. Hello everyone from all around the world. Javi in Bogota. Wow.
Nice.
Haru in Romania. Wonderful. And more. Great. Really happy to see you. We are three students of the wisdom of Kabbalah. Our teacher, Rav Lightman, he comes from a lineage of Kabbalists who did this, starting with Bala Sulam, but made the wisdom of Kabbalah, uh, presented it in um, as a scientific, but also like a spiritual discipline, open to people of all religions, all backgrounds. Basically, took this ancient wisdom, which was hidden in one group, although during the time of the temple, we know that the Greek philosophers and other people came to Jerusalem to learn. So it wasn't only there. Even Isaac Newton ended up with a Latin copy of the Zohar eventually.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot
Yeah.
of fascinating um, information about those kind of things and how this wisdom spread. But more, or in general, the wisdom of Kabbalah remained hidden within that kind of tiny, tiny. Within the Jewish people, it's a tiny, tiny group of people. But within that people, the Orthodox are a tiny group of people, and within that, even smaller, there were these hidden sages who you could, it was very difficult to find them. And once you found them, they didn't let you in unless you kind of
Knew the password.
needless to say, needless to say, it was a big hassle to access the wisdom of Kabbalah. Our teacher, from Bala Sulam to Rabash to Rav Lightman, our teacher, has made this wisdom available to even lowly people like the three of us who ended up here on your YouTube today to discuss what we received from them about what is going on in the world. So, welcome to the Great Transition today. How was that, guys?
Not bad.
Nice.
Not bad.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Okay. I'll buy
Today,
that for an
today
intro. Yeah.
So we're lowly people, and we found some stuff that no one knows
we
about. Okay.
we found some. Yeah, like they say that 1,000 blind people just need one person who can see, and everybody can get where they're going. Or 1,000 sheep just needs one shepherd.
Hmm.
So nothing special really about us except that we found this wisdom, and had a lot of, maybe the best thing, the best quality is maybe our patience and just our ability to see and talk about these things. So we're in a very unique time. The show today is called Inner and Outer Worlds Converging. So when Rabbi Shimon 2,000 years ago in the Zohar describes that we're in an inhabited world that turns in a circle like a ball, some are above and some are below, right? So his writing about this didn't come because he was measuring shadows on the moon, like other ancient cultures who also
Hmm.
solved these things, and he didn't do it because he had some special telescope, or they may have had things. But this is, the Kabbalists are looking at reality. Um, the Kabbalists are discovering the soul, the structure and the map of the soul. And from that archetypal structure, which we call Yud He, Vav He, or we call the four phases of direct light, or four phases, even from Abraham, even today we use the same language as scientists several thousand years when we talk about Keter Chochma Bina Zeran Pin Malchut. When you penetrate into this spiritual reality, so then you see the map for everything that happens in this reality. Now let's put that on a shelf for a second, because humanity, on the other hand, developed from monkeys over many, many hundreds of thousands and millions of years, from animals up until this dirt. Basically, if you want to go back even billions of years, you take this dirt, which eventually smashes and melts and burns and pulls and crushes again until the dirt connected in more and more complex ways and became life. And so you're basically, what a human is today is dirt that went through billions of years of evolution. And now that dirt is like has it's like waking up. Although the person we're going to talk about later even says that trees have consciousness and things before the humans have consciousness. But imagine you take mud and just it keeps developing, keeps getting smarter over billions of years, and that's humanity. That's called from below to above. Okay, that's development from below to above. The Kabbalists, when they're talking about something about the soul, that's not from earth, from below to above. That's something that comes from above to below. It's like an alien quality. It's not earthly. It's from out somewhere else and comes down. That picture of the soul, that consciousness of the soul, that ended up inside of some of those earthly creatures. Okay, so these are two different systems. It's not just like we understand that the brain or everything develops from zero all the way up until the year, or from year minus 14 billion up until the year 2025, and everything just keeps evolving like this. There's also this other thing where somehow this consciousness, this alien, I don't know what you'd call it, planted itself also in here. In that soil, that earth. So, now on Earth, because of that mixing, we keep getting these kind of leaps. So, for example, before Darwin, people thought a zebra is a zebra, a giraffe is a giraffe, and that's species. But Darwin comes along and says, no, species are evolving due to pressures in the environment. So you do have these humans, not Kabbalists, who say there's these like leaps in understanding how reality works. Chris, you brought up germs, I think 2 shows ago or something like that, right? Like before,
Sure.
you remember what you said? That people, like before people
He doesn't
had-
remember, but he trusts you.
Yeah. No, I remember now. Yeah, that before people knew about them, their attitude towards, it's like I just saw a recent video where these babies are like laying on a mat, and they're obviously chaperoned by like other researchers and other people in the room, and probably their mothers probably were there, and they put these non-venomous snakes all around the babies, and the babies like were not phased at all. Because the babies they don't know what a snake is, or
Right.
you could put a spider there. You could do, you could you could you could put
Yeah.
you could put whatever animal you want there. But that's the kind of the same thing. Like until you are taught to be afraid of something, then you're fine with it. So people walked around with germs, no problem. Yeah, I guess that's what
Right.
you
So
were
Louis,
talking about.
yeah. So Louis Pasteur comes around and says there's these microscopic things living on your body. What are you talking about?
Right.
What microscopic things? So there was a leap in people's
Yeah.
understanding and how to. Okay, Henry Ford, for example. Before Henry Ford, or at the beginning, a skilled guy made a car, and another skilled guy made another car. You can't sell something like that to the consumer because it's way too expensive. So Henry Ford comes up with this thing called a production line, where he's like, okay, you just rivet that, okay, you just do that, okay, you just do that. And now because of the efficiency of that, consumers can buy a car. The price goes way, 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 way down, and production goes way, way up. So it's a leap in thinking. Last week's show, we talked about before cars, they thought the biggest problem in the cities was going to be that the cities were going to be buried in horse manure from all the people coming to the cities. But cars come, and there's a leap. Okay, we get you kind of get where I'm going. So in the Freedom article,
Yeah.
Bala Sulam talks about this concept where hopefully you can help me find that while I give this example of a glacier. So a glacier exists, let's say, for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
Small cracks are forming in the glacier. The water, the ocean is banging against it for 200 years, eroding it. Small crack, but it's just sitting there. Gigantic. You don't see any change. You could barely measure anything. One day, it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. I don't know, another little crack. The temperature warms up a tiny bit, or it cools down enough, or whatever happens. A giant piece of the glacier falls off and causes a tsunami.
Mm-hmm.
Like the pressure builds up for hundreds of years, and then a huge change. You know what I'm talking about, guys? Where in the freedom, Kabbalah Islam,
How does
he
it appear
talks
in
about
the freedom?
he
What?
talks about that that in a society that the suffering builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up until it erupts, and then the change
Okay,
happens.
and then yeah, I'm not sure it's in the freedom article. I think it's maybe in the nation actually, where you
Ah,
talk
okay.
like the how the situation becomes intolerable, and then another state appears like that.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
we should see that, if you Rabash gives that example, that if you're going to Jerusalem and it's a 90-mile trip and you've gone 88 miles, you're not in Jerusalem yet.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that you stop. It doesn't mean that you are not on the way, but your state still feels like I'm not in that next state yet. You may be one step away from entering Jerusalem, but you're still not in Jerusalem,
Yeah.
right? Or wherever you're going. So we should see what process we're in now, and we see in the news this week what's happening in the United States, for example, how these different way of approaching government just change. What happened in the Middle East, what may be happening in Gaza, like this just totally different outside of the box way of, like, you reach a certain threshold and then this new approach happens. So this week, a friend of ours shared with us a video by a physicist, Federico Fagan, I think is his name. How you pronounce the last name, I don't know how you pronounce his last name. He designed the first microprocessor in a computer, which means basically every single one of us on a cell phone or on a computer, it probably in part to this guy. Later, he went on to focus on the connection between neural networks, computational, like Chris, like AI stuff, and consciousness. And what happens when you take a scientist who really understands these? Do either of you guys have a video of the microchip where they go in? Like,
Oh, I know what you mean.
Mm.
I don't have it at
you don't have
hand,
it?
but I know
Mm-mm.
what you mean. Yeah,
I
I'm
it's
might be
gonna
able to
find
find
it.
that
remarkable.
in like
I'm,
It's
5 seconds.
it's really
I
cool.
just sent it to my
Yeah.
son, one of these, but we'll see.
Okay, I sent it to myself this morning. So if you can't find it, I'll find it. So we have a situation now where from the bottom up and from the top down, or let's say from the inside out and from the outside in, there is a convergence of what kind of reality we're living in. It's getting hard to hold on to the our understanding of reality, the way we understood it up until
Yeah.
this moment.
Yeah.
So most of our life, we are not asking our question, not asking, like, what is consciousness? What are we doing here? Why are we alive? Basically, most of our life, we're like the animals that we came from, just trying to calm ourselves down with pleasures. But these questions are not, these questions won't leave us alone. And the few brave people who continue to pursue these questions are discovering that reality isn't just
Yeah.
some kind of classical physics situation with billiard balls, moving uh, in
Yeah.
pre-programmed ways. There's some other infinite experience taking place within what seems to us to be this finite
Yeah,
reality
and
that we're living in.
it's I mean you mentioned this specific one, and maybe we'll put a link in the description if for those interested. Um, but It's actually, from what I'm seeing, like I'm always trying to kind of keep an eye on, what's out there in the scientific world, in the scientific like community. And I think maybe in the last few years or in the last decade or something like that, there's definitely more and more scientists and thinkers that are trying, each from their perspective, to kind of say something to the scientific community and maybe to the broader community as well, that sounds like, we don't really know where we are. We don't understand what this world really is. We don't understand what reality is really made of. We don't understand, our purpose here. Also, that some even get to that point, and that's really cool to see from a Kabbalistic perspective. It's really interesting to see that there's this awakening, there's this search at the very least. And yes, there are some people who, from their field of research, are seeing that the current questions that come up can't be solved in the current paradigm. And there has to be some, like you said, out of the box thinking. And I think this conversation we all heard in preparation for this conversation between us, I think that's a really good example. It's a really good example. So, I mean, he shakes up, I would say, a bunch of dogmas that we have, like, for instance, that reality is made of matter, and that our conscious experiences are the products of our brains, and that a bunch of other things, but they're all about the nature of reality. And I think that what's really interesting, and I don't know if that's where you wanted to go, Seth, with like as a first kind of rabbit hole to go into, but you started from talking a little bit about the wisdom of Kabbalah and what that really is. And the wisdom of Kabbalah is really a description of reality as a single reality. It is a wisdom that is capable of integrating, weaving together everything that exists, from the most outer material experiences that we see and feel through our five senses, all the way to the innermost feelings that we have and our ideas about what ideas are, and our ideas of what is value and meaning and what is spirituality and God and a reality that is beyond this material five senses based perception that we have. Kabbalah has a way of tying all of that into a single picture of reality. And what seems to have happened throughout history is that as science began to emerge from philosophy, really, because philosophy is the origin of science, and science is essentially like, kind of like when some philosophers started saying, wait a minute, let's test some of our ideas, some of our hypotheses, let's actually develop the tools, and then we started actually having tools and so on, and then science became like diverged from philosophy, but essentially that's kind of where it came from. And then the more practical and pragmatic and measurable and empirical science became, the more it had to seclude itself from anything that it cannot measure and directly experience. And
That's
meant,
interesting for a second, though.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Because I think you should like hang on to that point, because emotionally you're kind of like forcing us to go through this timeline of experience of like human development for a second. I think it's important that we get an emotional impression about what kind of happened there, because you can imagine, I don't know, however many hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, when you first start to explore reality, whether it's, you're starting to that's a whole nother thing, is how did they even, how did they even find out that fire, or how did the shamans even find out that, you need to have this mushroom and this tree bark and put it together. But uh, this whole idea of when you start opening this like kind of Pandora's box, if you will, where you start, if you start going down that direction, we need to research this a little bit more. We need to understand how maybe this works together, uh, or maybe break this thing apart and examine the components that are inside. Once you start going down that hole and you start revealing new things about reality that you didn't see, and I'm talking about just the physical reality. I'm not even talking about human psychology or emotion or anything at this point. You already, once you open that box, it's like you can't stop. You've got to keep going until, I mean, look at us now. We're talking about like, okay, yeah, there's atoms, but then what makes up an atom? Or what is, what's behind an atom, or what's even smaller than an atom? And you see that you just like keep peeling more and more and more, and you can't stop. But that's kind of where we are now, is that we've kind of hit this
Can't stop. You
this
mean
wall.
like it's an endless rabbit hole
It's
that scientists
an endless
are
rabbit
finding.
hole.
Yeah.
It's like we had to just exhaust, like, okay, it's like if you open a door to a dark room, and that there's things in there that are going to help you understand more about life or whatever. You're not just going to leave halfway through. You're going to have
Yeah.
to continue to find out the things
Well,
that are hidden from you.
there's a wonderful concept in the wisdom of Kabbalah, which is that it's called I labored and I found. And you'd normally think that I work here and I get a reward here. I go and work for a boss and then I get a reward. Or I chop. Imagine like you need to cut down a tree. So you chop all day on this tree and then a tree on that side of the forest falls. It's we don't really, because there's it's like a quantum situation here. We're not sure where all of the connections are made, and we end up inside of this system, and we're told how to start working in the system, but we don't understand what's happening in there yet. And so at the beginning, Chris, you're saying that we call it in Kabbalah that the aviyut of humanity was small, meaning people were close to nature. They didn't have these giant developed egos like we have today. You can imagine a long, long time ago, people were very simple. They didn't wake up from one day to the next and say, I need to go to vacation in Paris. I need to get that new phone. I need to do this. It was, I need to eat today. I need to, procreate, and what else? Eat again. Very, very simple. That goes on. And their connection to the divine is very immediate. It's clear. You're in nature. You're one with everything. Then as we get to science, like you're talking to us now, I need to know answers. I'm not just going to believe in something.
Right.
As humans start to develop and intelligence increases and education increases,
Yeah.
people want to know. I want answers. I'm not just going to believe in something I don't know what it is. Tell me what's going on. Chris is describing this process that we're going in deeper. We're going in deeper. We're going in deeper. And this is where the wisdom of Kabbalah, with this I labored and I found, you go in deeper, trying to understand how all of these things are connected. And all of a sudden, inside of your heart or something, all of a sudden,
Right.
somehow you have this out of body experience somehow, where you start to understand, start to feel the interconnectedness of everything, because you're trying to study a neural network or something.
Here's why I think something like what this Federico Fagin, I hope that's the right way to pronounce his name. Here's what the interview with him is exciting, because if we think about all of this as a historical process, right? Like to make it really, really short and simple, right? We were in the beginning of our development before science. We were very, very close to nature, and there was some sort of an attitude to nature that, as we grew in our ego and individualism and so forth, we lost that instinctive, naive sort of initial kind of sense of feeling each other and feeling nature and feeling that we are governed by a greater force of nature and so forth. And there was and we just lived kind of naively, instinctively in that way. Then we started developing in our egos, and gradually we also invented science, and we started saying, wait a minute, we want to understand and rationalize and know exactly everything that we
Manipulate,
yeah, exactly.
exploit.
We want to exactly govern and manipulate and change maybe nature. So we need to study the laws of nature in order to make better use of them for ourselves and so on. And then we started that line of development for a couple hundred years. And I mean, if you think about it, science in application, real science exists only what? 300 years, I want to say. I mean, 300 years, let's say, since Newton. So that's,
Sure.
let's,
So
we
there
can
was that
kind of
Renaissance or
look at it
whatever.
that way. In theory, you could say we have science for maybe 600-700 years if you go even back, to like the origins of it. But it's not that long of a time. So this whole jump in historical perspective happened in a very short time, and now we're kind of discovering that there's an entire world that we excluded from science because we had no scientific access to it, no scientific understanding of it. So we just excluded it. And that is the entire world that has to do with our experience, our feelings, our
coming back
inner world.
around
And
from the
exactly.
other side.
And now what this guy and a bunch of other thinkers and scientists are saying today is, wait a minute, even what quantum physics is showing us, for instance, that particles can be entangled across the entire universe, for instance, that when we make...
Just a sec.
Yeah.
Just explain what that means, that a particle can be entangled. It's
Oh man, but
clear
if we
to you.
go
It might
deep
not be
into
clear to everyone.
every little thing,
No,
then we won't
just
complete
simple,
the whole
just a
picture.
simple.
It
Okay.
means that if
In a
you
very
have two
simple-
particles and they're entangled and you change the state of one, instantly the other one is affected as well, even
so
if
what it
they're
means-
galaxies
let
apart.
me okay, I will explain it very
So
simply.
that means that there's a connection that has to somehow be faster than the speed of light, or be above the speed of light. In
Which,
short,
according
it
to the laws of physics, is impossible.
is impossible. And yet, 3 years ago, in I think 2022, the three physicists received a Nobel Prize for experimentally proving that quantum entanglement actually is happening. And so this
What
is
that
something
means, what that means
puts
is
it...
yeah. Something can happen over here, and instantaneously in the other side of the universe,
Yeah.
something can be affected because of that. Normally in physics, there needs to be some wind or some pressure
Yeah.
or something connection between them, but somehow it turns out that these two things, a universe
Influence
apart,
each other instantly.
instantaneously.
Instantly,
Right, okay.
yeah.
So this is what you mean
And
by
so-
entanglement.
Yeah, so this is something that, only 3 years ago, the scientific community kind of put a stamp on it, and said, okay, this is happening. We don't know the whole story. We don't know exactly how it works, but it works. And we can even build... Yeah.
Let's confirm though. Let's just solidify here what you're trying to say, which is we did have some kind of emotional connection to nature, and that was kind of our science. That was our way of of life. We even said God or whatever. We had some kind of spiritual connection. We found out that there was a way to manipulate the material world that we see, and every time we found something, there was something, a smaller thing that we could explore and take it apart and figure out a way to connect it with other things and make new materials, and all kinds of new sciences that came out of that as a result of that, completely forgetting anything that had to do with some emotional or some experience in a different conscious experience in reality. And now we've kind of hit this wall in science. You're saying that we've explored all that we can, and basically in the material world, and it's forcing us now. We're kind of being forced to address
what
the
we're
thing
discovering
that we've ignored for the whole time.
Yeah, that's
labored
one
and I
aspect
found.
of it. That it's interesting that through the actual discoveries in our most cutting edge science, we're getting to a point where we have to answer deeper questions that might that force us to think outside the box and think of all the science that we've been doing as something that maybe is just a limited fragment of the whole of reality. And so what?
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Let's take a break from our sponsor, the Wisdom of Kabbalah, and say this is an inflection point. This is a
Yeah.
special moment for everybody here
Yes.
to realize where we are. Like
Yeah.
you go out and you see things happening in the governments, and you go out and you see things happening with wars, and you go out and you see things happening probably in your own family, in your own neighborhood, like these things, and feel that if you're traveling 90 miles to Jerusalem, and if you're at mile 89, like there's or like that iceberg before it breaks off, like we're right before this next leap. That's where we are. So see what's happening in the world through that lens. That's what the wisdom of Kabbalah is offering us, like right now, at this moment, if you want to take away from the show, is that we're in, understand where we are in the process. This pressure has been building, humanity has been developing, and we're about to end, like last week. Was it last week, the show we talked about the hockey stick
Yeah.
exponential curve? We're at
Yes.
the point of the curve right before the vertical ascent.
Right. So essentially, okay. So what him, this Federico, and other scientists are. I'm kind of paraphrasing and generalizing, but essentially what they're saying is there's a single reality, and that reality is non-material. And time, space, matter, they are limitations of our perception. And they are the way in which we experience reality, but they are not the fundamental building blocks of reality. And so while we research things here and make science and make engineering and technology, and it all works inside this reality, it doesn't really tell us about the true nature of reality. And if we want to go deeper, then we have to go beyond these constructs. And essentially, this is of course again a generalized, kind of simplified, and one aspect of what's happening
Well,
here.
wait a
But this
second.
is-
But he was saying,
Yeah.
he was saying from the ground up, like, why do we think we're so special? Why do we think that humans are so special? We have a consciousness. We're able to think about ourselves. We're able to take this like kind of outer perspective where we kind of like step out of ourselves. Even yet people have out of body experiences, and they're trying to explain that because everyone has these kind of strange experiences. But they were saying, until this body developed until a certain point, it was only because the body developed and the brain became, advanced to a certain level that it was able to experience itself. I mean, we can even look at dolphins and be like, well, dolphins, have a very developed brain, and they are even also conscious of themselves or whatever. But you could even go, take that back further. But that's kind of what he's postulating, is that, okay, that's how we understood how everything developed until now, that consciousness is basically a result of this developing human body. But what he's coming back now and saying is that it doesn't depend. There's no connection between how much a body develops and how much consciousness you have. It's not your
Right.
brain.
Basically,
that gives it to you.
instead of the classical thinking that over 13.8 billion years of evolution, at some point, I guess 500 million years ago, the first clusters of neurons come together, and that's the first brain. And then 500 million years later, -2, you have Homo erectus, which is like our predecessors with like the initial brains that looks like humans, then Homo sapiens about 250,000 years ago, and that brain just develops and develops, and it produces everything we feel and everything we experience and our consciousness. It's all a result of material clusters of neurons that by evolution somehow come together, and and they produce this feeling of reality. That's our classical understanding of the world. And so people like him come and say, no, what we think of as the world and material evolution, all of that is happening inside something that is non-material, some emotional feeling,
Let's
experience of
call it
reality.
the one
They
soul of Adam Harishon.
That's the Kabbalistic term, of course.
Since it's a
We,
Kabbalistic show,
we
let's
should
use
go
that
there.
language.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting
And
actually.
then
Let's linger on this for 1 second. Most of these scientists today that are talking about this and thinkers, they use the term consciousness. So they basically say consciousness creates what we think of as the material world. Consciousness produces what we think of as our body. We are a field of consciousness, and everything exists in consciousness. But from a Kabbalistic perspective, like you started taking us there, even that is really secondary. Consciousness is something that happens. It's the experience that happens inside something more fundamental that Kabbalah refers to as the vessel, the field, if you'd like, a field of desire that was created to be fulfilled, that wants fulfillment. And that is where everything happens. Everything happens in this vessel of perception, vessel of reception.
And
that
fulfillment is non-material.
Yeah. And essentially, fulfillment is non-material, but we imagine, we interpret our experience. We are a vessel, an emotional vessel that wants to be fulfilled, and we interpret what we're going through as eating a steak, getting up, getting out of bed, going to work.
I just
all
watched
of
The
that
Matrix
is
with my
our
son, and
look.
that bit of where he has the steak going through. He's like, I know that there's no such thing as steak, but I love that it goes into my mouth and it goes down. It's like
It's a
prefer
good.
this life.
Again, think about that. The fact that there was such a movie 20 years ago or something like that. That too, and we also know that it was partly inspired by in some way by Kabbalistic wisdom. I mean, it's also something that is gradually, it's like small drops, little droplets of insights that make people think, and I think that's why it's exciting now when the scientific world is starting to shake up and consider. It's still not the majority of scientists. It's still not the main scientific paradigm and so on. And there's a whole debate and power struggle happening inside science, which he talks about as well. But the fact that it's happening, the fact that some are starting to think, wait a minute, maybe we've been looking at it all wrong. We not wrong, but just in a limited way. All that we've been doing in science was inside a box. And if we want to understand the nature of reality, we have to go outside of it, and we have to start seeing reality as one.
This is why I brought up before, like the Henry Ford situation. Like before it was one skilled worker, and then it became building a car, then it became a production line, right? Or before Louis Pasteur told everyone that there's germs living there, and then after. So there's I think, and this is where I was, I remember like being 18 and being like down with the system, and like everyone's a sheep, and you're it's very like us and them kind of thing. Like I know what's right, and these people are all wrong, right? We see this all the time in living in America. It's very clear, like they're wrong, I'm right, they're wrong, I'm right. This very dualistic situation where instead what we are offered here by the Kabbalists is a worldview, and now by scientists who are getting there as well, is a worldview that we're in a process of development. And I guess even for the scientists, and somebody asked, like, do world leaders know this? Do the scientists know this? Like, why don't these guys, like, when we see Federico talking about this, we're like, I wish he could just sit down with the Rav and
What is a
tell me that's
scientist?
what he wrote.
It's interesting that scientists are the ones that are asking these questions, like for humanity. It's like they're the ones who are interested, and we call them scientists, and we give
they
give
have
them a
time.
lab coat
It's
and
their
stuff. But it's
profession.
actually a developed person.
It's they have the time to engage in these things,
Right.
but we have the perspective to understand that we don't need to be, it's not like everyone got everything wrong up until now, or everything was so bad and now we need to
Yes,
make it right.
yes,
It's a
yes.
process
You're
of
right.
development,
Say it
and
better. Yeah.
it's also worthwhile for us to take a minute and explain why this whole thing, if everything is all consciousness and we're discovering that everything is one soul, and even the trees are part of the one soul, and even the grass is part of that whole soul, and everything is one interconnected system. So what is the benefit of our development from
Mm-hmm.
below up? What is the benefit of us having to figure this out step by
Right.
step?
Okay. This is where, if we get into that, this is where I would say you can really start talking about the differences between Kabbalah and what it actually is, the true science that it is, and it's a science in more than the ordinary sciences. It's just that it's hard to explain, but it really is that, because it connects all of reality to one and examines it as one whole. And these scientists, even these very cutting edge scientists and thinkers who are they identify that reality is one, that there has to be some one field, and everything that we experience is just different instances and projections or imprints of that fields, even particles in our world. Right now, people like Federico can explain them as sort of like signatures or imprints of the field in our perception, and so that they can get to that point. But what Kabbalists gave to us essentially in their accounts, in their writings, is a description of the system that governs our experience. That doesn't exist without actually discovering that, changing yourself, changing your vessel to experience the full depth of reality, through which you can understand what is this minimal dreamlike experience is for, and how it works. And so when a Kabbalist discovers the spiritual nature of reality, they see a picture of everything, including why the structure of humanity is built the way it is, the structure of the different nations, even, and how the big phases of development that the soul needs to go through in order to awaken and rediscover its oneness, and how it manifests in what we think of as material development and history in our world and so on. It's all happening. It's all one big dream, one big imagination that we're in. By the way, it's really interesting. They get to, you mentioned it in the beginning. If you look at Kabbalistic terminology from thousands of years ago, and you look at Kabbalistic terminology that the more recent Kabbalists have been using, it's the same terminology. That is just by itself is unbelievable. It's indescribable. If you take any science, even from the ordinary sciences, there's no science that exists for that long, for several thousand years, and has terminology that is unique to the science and does not change. And
Even old
scientists,
English, even if you read
Kabbalists,
English
yeah,
from 200 years ago, you can't understand it.
right.
Yeah.
And
So talk
that
about
and that
over thousands of
language,
years.
why? Because there's a matter of roots and branches. Again, this is something, it's not just a discovery. Kabbalists are not just saying we're all one, there's one field and we're all part of it. And this is something that you can deduce, you can conclude from putting together all the findings of the science in this world. Kabbalah goes beyond that and explains the connection between what we experience in this illusory reality, illusory experience of reality, this branches level where we experience symbols, projections of the true reality, limited, fragmented experiences of the true eternal experience
But wait a
and
second,
the
Asaf.
connection with that internal experience. And that gives you a whole system of development, a whole ladder of development. Yeah, go ahead.
That isn't that interesting though, that through being stuck in this box, this illusory reality that we're in. First of all, who knows that that's what we're in? But let's say that through just being stuck in this box without having any peepholes on the outside,
Right.
sometimes people get these weird experiences, out of body experience, and they're like, "Whoa, wait a
Right.
second." Wait a second, something's not it's not exactly how it seems, or someone like the spooky action at a distance, like Einstein. These little clues, right? And just from clues, that's enough to make us uncomfortable
Yeah.
with just being stuck in this reality. And that's like and this this box that we're kind of sealed in, we understand that it's like did its job kind of at keeping us in this kind of concealment, not letting us know the full picture, and that makes us uncomfortable. And then you have these scientists that are coming out and saying, no, we have to go out this way. There was a cool quote in the document, I guess it's an interview that we saw, where he mentions Tesla talking, Nikola Tesla, right, the scientist, said something about how if we start researching consciousness, again they're using that word term, if we start researching this consciousness, this thing that's like hidden from us, right, this world that are feeling that we exist, if we start researching that world, then we'll advance 10 times more than 10 times faster than we have in remember how he said exactly, but faster than we have in the whole of our scientific development, meaning that
Ooh.
this box
We should mention
the
the point about AI in this regard, because
Even
this gives another really cool perspective. Okay,
Yeah.
keep going though. Keep going. Wait.
No, that's it. That's
This
what I'm saying. Where it's like where the Seth keeps trying to say, look at the time that we're in. I'm saying, and we're just kind of in this incubation kind of box, and that's it. We're kind of we're done. We've looked at all the reality. We've gone as deep as we can, into particles, and we're seeing like, okay, there's not really anything there. We've got the telescopes and we're looking as far as we can. We're saying, I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. And so it's forcing us to take this new approach. And that's just like, that happened naturally, like forcing us to move on,
Yeah. This is one of the things that I really liked in that interview, where he has an interesting perspective on AI, and we talk, we talk about it quite a bit, and also our teacher spoke about this from years ago, seeing it coming and everything, and identified that this is a major thing in human development, not because we're going to have new technology, but because this is a kind of technology that penetrates humanity's infrastructure and forces us to look at ourselves in a new light. And this is really interesting because we're creating now the technology that can seemingly replace us. It can do anything we can do and better. It can think better, reason better, make decisions better, write better songs, write better music, do better art, manage better, practice law better, do agriculture better. It can do everything better. That's it. So it's just better than us. And we're done. And basically,
it's better.
It's
better, but you're talking. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's better, but it's also, imagine the same way that everyone has a smartphone. You also have one of these robots in your house that is also cooking for you, doing your laundry and cleaning. So it's not only that everything will be better than a human can do it. There's also almost nothing left for a person to do.
That's where I'm getting to. If there's
Another
a technology,
angle yeah, exactly. It's it's forcing us to take a different approach.
Yeah, exactly. If there's a technology that can do everything better than us, then what makes the human any better than the machine, if at all? Is there anything in the human that is beyond the machine? And now, from a scientific perspective, so far, we've developed a science that says that we are no more than machines. Biological machines. essentially. And now there's a digital silicone-based machines instead of carbon-based machines that can work better, faster, do more calculations in less time. So if that's what we are, biological machines, then absolutely AI is going to be a better version, and we should, hang the towel already, and we're done, basically. Unless there is a whole other world, a whole other access to a whole other reality of the human being that we haven't even been exploring. And that's where we're kind of coming full circle again. And those instinctive insights that people thousands of years ago had when they were closer to nature and they felt connected to the governing force of nature, now with our developed egos and with our rationality and everything, we are kind of coming full circle and identifying that we have to find our access with our with our eyes opened, right? And our minds working. We have to find our access to that higher sensation or deeper experience of reality. And otherwise, there's really no point for the human. AI is just going to do everything else better.
It's
the
saying,
one
it's,
thing
it's
that AI
forcing us to ask about meaning.
about meaning, about purpose, the purpose of the human being. That's what comes into question.
Let's imagine a situation where it's your lucky day and you get a new BMW and you also get a deposit of 5 million cash in your bank, and they come and do any new kitchen, new whole upgrade on your apartment. Okay? Feels great, right? But let's imagine that it happens for, we could just bask in that for a second. I feel how light and how good it feels for you guys for a minute. Now let's imagine that everybody in the country got exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. So after a minute, the benefit, the pleasure wears off because I'm equalized with everyone again. This additional pleasure comes when I have, something that someone else doesn't have, or I have something that feels a little bit better. If everyone has the same exact great car, and everyone has the same exact great kitchen, and everyone has the exact, great amount of money in the bank,
then it's not great.
We are approaching a time when all our laundry will be done by a robot, and everyone will have access to the best doctor possible, and everyone will have access to the best teacher, the best everything possible. And when that's completely equalized, so what is the development? What is the human? I see here, Clara's like, humans can love, and who was someone else said something about divinity, and Nechama says better's not better. Eva says humans can feel. Like, what is left when everything else biologically or materially is just at a very high level for everyone? Right? What is left? Who are we?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
The crazy thing,
what are we doing here?
The crazy thing is that even if you have material abundance or not, what you're really filled from is non-material. That's the crazy thing. I mean, even money, right? Like when you have a lot of money, like the rich people who are super rich, right? So they even if you read like their testimonies, there's a few of those online. It's interesting, but it's like there's only so much you can eat and so many cars you can drive at the same time, and so many houses you can live in at the same time, and so many clothes you can wear, and so on.
You gotta feel life.
Ultimately, basically, you have a sense of confidence. You have a lot of zeros in the bank, and that gives you some sense of confidence, of power, of the ability of freedom, or something like that. What you're enjoying is not is a feeling. Basically, we are a creature that beyond our fulfilling our bodies, we're looking for meaning and value. That's what really fulfills us, and we've been trying to fill up that emotional hole with material stuff, and that's just not working, and that's really not what the human is destined for, is designed
So
for.
tell us, what is the human destined for? That's what I want to know.
So so if we go back towards, we have 3 minutes left, I see. So it's right on the right on time.
We can go
yeah.
over a couple of minutes, no pressure.
So that deeper reality where everything's connected, where everything is whole, where we exist beyond our material bodies, beyond life and death of the body. That reality awaits us. And in order to experience that, we have to dig into ourselves and start seeing everything through our inner world, including the outer worlds. See how everything is happening inside our vessel, inside the soul, if you want to call it that way. And that's where we discover our connection with the program that governs our experience. And
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Well, you've already awakened. I have to go back to the video because he gives a really cool example about the drone.
Yeah.
He's like, you put on the goggles, you fly your little first-person viewer drone, right? And you're getting all these signals from the drone and all these kind of inputs. Like, there's a tree here, so I need to move my left thumb and the joystick. So I'm getting input from this little drone, and then I'm reacting according to what I see. But he's like, that's how it is in our world. We're just, we are not our bodies. And we're slowly starting to agree with that concept. Science is showing us that it's possible to agree with that. It's not outlandish to think that anymore. I live, I die. Now people they want meaning. Why did you bring up the zeros in the bank? It was a cool example because ultimately it's giving me the same feeling that I can get with a little shack and a nice woman and a family. You have the same exact. It's not like you have a greater feeling of fulfillment by having 1,000 extra zeros versus having 1 0. But you're confident, you're comfortable, you're happy. It's the same feeling. So if it's the same feeling, and that's basically all that we're looking for, and we're just we have different means to get there. And yes, we get confused by using these means and understanding that, that it's possible to attain it with less means. It's the same fulfillment is all we're looking for. And we're starting to agree with that notion that I just want to be fulfilled. How can I be fulfilled? That's it. I don't care how it is. I just want to be fulfilled. And that's the beauty of where we are right now.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, one more thing from this interview. Yeah, he says, and this is really cool. He guarantees that give him just a little bit of time, and he's going to prove, for example, that trees or the vegetative levels, that they have some level of what he calls consciousness. Now, why is that super significant from a scientific perspective? Because if you can prove that consciousness happens outside the brain, then you have a whole different this flips the material paradigm of bottom up and neurons create consciousness and so on. That flips it on its head, and just like how quantum entanglement just became something that's it's experimentally proven, and everyone in the scientific community agrees with it, and now has to kind of grapple with it scientifically. Now you'll have to grapple with this idea. So this is interesting. This is interesting if something like that really happens, but ultimately, all the science in the world is not going to be where it ends. This is just our intellectual understanding of where we are. It's a step. It's definitely important. It's definitely part of human development, but we have to experience.
It sensitizes the person. It sensitizes us.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Be able to
yes.
Feel an answer where we don't, like Chris is like, I need the fulfillment. It sensitizes us to what's already here.
it's so crazy when you think about this whole transformation, this whole awakening. Let's call it awakening for this just final few words here. Yeah, the humanity is going through a process of a major awakening. It's an awakening to a dimension that is beyond our current one. This is such an it's it sounds, of course, it sounds mystical and weird, and because it is because it is.
He called it the invisible universe, which was kind of cool too.
We're going through an awakening. Now think about it. When you're in a dream, this is the coolest thing, that we, even in our world, the outcomes world, the branches world, we have such a thing called a dream. It's something that we go to sleep and we dream, right? This comes from, it's an expression, it's an imprint that comes from the structure of the deeper reality, the broader reality, because we live in a reality of symbols, the lowest level of symbols of the higher forces, the more fundamental forces that are working in reality. That's why everything that we see in our world has a reason. It's a symbol. It's a branch of a higher root. So the stuff that we do, all the natural things that you see in the world, they have a root, including us going to sleep and dreaming, right? And that is a branch of what Kabbalists call we were as dreamers. Our entire life in this body is a dream. And we need to wake up from it. To what? To a completely different coordinates and completely different reality, where everything's one, where nothing dies, where everything's eternal, where we're all connected, and every one of us is the world. Every one of us is a mini model of the entire world, of the entire soul, and all the nations and all the people and all of politics and all of technology and all that happens. It's all part of me. It's happening in me. It's all one integral reality that exists in each and every part of it. Just like the cells in our body, they have some sort of access to the nervous system and the collective knowledge of the entire body. And this is the kind of reality that we're going to wake up to. And this is a huge thing that is happening through these scientists that are starting to see that something's wrong in this reality. This can't be the fundamental reality. AI is this technology that suddenly puts a mirror to our face and makes us ask, what are we doing here? What are we about? What's the purpose of humans on this planet? The geopolitical nature of the world is so shaky and so weird that the changes happen in less and less time. This exponential pace of changes and disruptions is also changing our idea of what's possible and what's not possible. And so all of that is part of this great awakening, this huge opening, the opening of the eyes. That's literally how Kabbalists call it, by the way, opening, p'tichat einayim, right? Opening the eyes. And that's where we're at, and that's why it's exciting, and that's why we're doing this great transition podcast. I'm
Absolutely
out of words.
Yeah. So beautiful. So beautiful. We are so lucky to have friends like this and to be able to talk about this. Tony, thank you for sending us that video. What's the name of the video, guys? If anyone wants to see it, if you can and find it.
I'll put it in the chat.
While we're playing the song, we'll put it in the chat. Yeah, okay. Exactly.
We'll be back next Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, to talk about the process that humanity is going into. We are at the end of our material development. It doesn't matter. Don't worry. You're going to stay here. You'll still have your house and your family and everything. But the end of the limit of of this stage, material development, and the beginning of humanity's spiritual development. You're here. You got a front row seat. That's what we're taking. That's the process we're all in now. We're giving you all a big hug, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.